You walk into a room. You don't know why. But something feels off. The lighting is fine. The temperature is fine. Nobody has said anything. Nothing is technically wrong. But your shoulders drop. Your chest tightens. You suddenly want to leave and you can't explain why. The room hasn't done anything to you. The room has done everything to you. And your brain noticed before you did. You've probably had this happen and never thought about it. You walk into a friend's apartment and feel instantly at ease. Even though you've never been there before. You walk into a doctor's waiting room and your body tenses before anyone has even spoken to you. You sit in a coffee shop you've never visited and you can already tell whether you're going to stay for an hour or finish your drink and leave. You're reading the room. You're not reading it consciously. You're reading it with the older parts of your brain. The parts that don't speak in words. And those parts are reading something specific? In 1984, a researcher named Roger Ulrich published a study that shocked the architectural world. He had been given access to medical records from a hospital in Pennsylvania. He looked at patients who had undergone the same surgery. Performed by the same doctors. With the same medication protocols. Recovering in the same wing of the same hospital. The only difference between them was one thing. The view from their window? Half the patients had a window that looked out onto a small grove of trees. The other half had a window that looked out onto a brick wall. Same surgery. Same care. Same building. One group had leaves. The other group had bricks. The group with the trees recovered faster. They needed less pain medication. They had fewer complications. They left the hospital nearly a full day earlier. And nobody had told them anything was different. Their bodies knew. Their minds had no idea. This is the part of architecture that almost nobody talks about. We talk about whether a building is beautiful. We talk about whether it's expensive. We almost never talk about what it is doing to the people who have to be inside it. And what it is doing is enormous. Here is what your brain is actually reading when you walk into a room. It reads the ceiling first. The height of a ceiling changes how your mind processes what you're thinking about. A study from the University of Minnesota tested this directly. They put people in rooms with 10-foot ceilings and asked them to solve creative problems. They put a second group in rooms with 8-foot ceilings and gave them the same problems. The high ceiling group thought in broader, more abstract terms. The low ceiling group thought in more detailed, focused terms. Same problems. Same instructions. Different ceilings. Different minds. Architects have a word for this. They call it the cathedral effect. High ceilings make you feel expansive. Low ceilings make you feel contained. Neither is good or bad. It depends on what the room is for. But almost no room you've ever been in was designed with this in mind. Most ceilings exist at whatever height was cheapest to build. Then your brain reads the corners. This sounds strange, but it's well documented. Sharp 90-degree corners trigger a subtle stress response in your nervous system. Researchers using brain scans found that participants looking at images of rooms with sharp angular corners showed activity in the amygdala. The part of the brain that processes threat. Rooms with curved walls or rounded corners didn't produce this response. Nobody told these participants what they were looking at. Their brains decided sharp meant danger. It is an old reading. The kind of reading your ancestors used to decide whether a shape in the dark was a rock or something that could hurt them. You still carry that wiring. Your office cubicle is still being read as a possible threat by some quiet part of your nervous system that has not been updated since the savanna. Then your brain reads the light, not the brightness. The kind, cool blue light, the kind that comes from fluorescent tubes and most LED bulbs, is read by your brain as midday. It tells your body to be alert, to suppress melatonin, to stay productive. Warm yellow light, the kind that comes from old incandescent bulbs and candles, is read as evening. It tells your body to wind down. A lot of us spend our days in cool blue light and our evenings in cool blue light. Our brains are stuck in midday from morning until bedtime. The light never tells us to rest. Then we wonder why we can't sleep. Why we can't relax. Why we feel low energy even though we haven't done anything. The room has been screaming midday at us for 16 hours. Then your brain reads the materials. A room full of natural materials. Wood. Stone. Plants. Soft fabric. Reduces stress markers measurably. A 2016 study tested cortisol levels in workers in offices made primarily of wood versus offices made primarily of plastic and metal. The wood office workers had lower cortisol, lower heart rates, reported feeling calmer at the end of the day. Nobody had told them why. The brain reads natural materials and remembers something. It remembers a world it was built for. A world of dirt and bark and skin and water. When you walk into a room made entirely of synthetic surfaces, your brain registers it as a place that is not quite home. You can't articulate that. You just feel it. And then there is the one that gets the least attention but maybe matters the most. Smell. A room has a smell. Always. You don't notice your own house because your brain filters out familiar smells in minutes. But when you walk into someone else's space, the first thing your nose does is run a check against thousands of stored memories. Hospital. School. Grandmother's house. Hotel. Dentist. Before you've taken 3 steps, your brain has already pulled up an emotional file based on what you smelled. Smells go straight to the limbic system. They bypass the parts of your brain that handle conscious thought. By the time you've decided whether you like a room, your nose has already decided for you. Here is where it starts to get unsettling. Most of the spaces you spend time in were not designed for you to feel good in. They were designed for other reasons entirely. Casinos are designed so you cannot find an exit. Fast food restaurants are designed so you eat fast and leave fast. Open-plan offices were designed because they were cheaper to build. Not because they helped anyone concentrate. Hospital waiting rooms were designed by people who did not have to wait in them. The space you sit in for 40 hours a week was almost certainly not designed by anyone thinking about your nervous system. It was designed by someone thinking about cost per square foot. And your body has been paying that bill. Quietly. Every single day. Without knowing why. A Japanese researcher named Yoshifumi Miyazaki spent years studying what happens to people who walk through forests. Not hike. Just walk. Slowly. For an hour. He measured their blood pressure. Their stress hormones. Their heart rate variability. The forest walks lowered everything. Even short ones. The Japanese government took this seriously enough that they named it. They call it Shinrin-yoku. Forest bathing. They built designated forest bathing trails. They prescribe it. The interesting part is not that nature helps. We've known that for centuries. The interesting part is that the effect happens even when participants are shown photographs of forests. Even when they hear recordings of forest sounds. The brain responds to the suggestion of nature with measurable physical calm, which means the opposite is also true. A room that has no suggestion of nature. No view. No wood. No plants. No natural light. No curve. Is being read by your nervous system as an alien environment. A place where you do not belong. A place where your body must stay slightly on guard. Just in case. You don't feel it as panic. You feel it as a low, vague unease that you assume must be coming from inside you. From something you ate. From your mood. From your week. You blame yourself. The room sits there blameless. Doing exactly what it was built to do. In 1972, an architect named Christopher Alexander published a book called A Pattern Language. He had spent years walking through buildings, neighborhoods, towns, asking one question. Why do some places feel alive and some places feel dead? He documented hundreds of patterns that made spaces feel right. Light from 2 sides of a room. A window seat. A doorway with a slight ceremony to it. A place to stop and think at the top of the stairs. Almost none of these patterns appear in modern buildings. Not because architects don't know about them. Because they cost more? Because they take up space that could be sold? Because the people designing buildings are not the people living in them. The patterns that make a room feel like home have been quietly priced out of most of the rooms you will ever be in. And here is the part that stays with you. You can't outthink your way around this. You can't decide to feel calm in a fluorescent waiting room. You can't will yourself into peace inside a building made of plastic. The reading happens too fast. The body has already responded before the mind has caught up. You can override it briefly. You cannot override it permanently. The only real fix is to change what you're in. That sounds simple. It isn't. Most of us cannot redesign our offices. We cannot raise our ceilings or replace our windows or fire the architect who built our apartment building. We live inside choices that other people made. We work inside spaces that were optimized for something other than us. But you can do small things. You can add a plant. The research on plants is overwhelming and consistent. Even one plant in a room measurably lowers stress. You can change a light bulb. Warm light in the evening tells your body it's safe to rest. You can sit by the window? Even on a cloudy day. Natural light is doing something that artificial light cannot replicate. You can pay attention. You can notice which rooms drain you and avoid them when you can. You can notice which rooms restore you and seek them out. Your body has been telling you all of this your whole life. You just weren't listening because nobody told you the body had something to say about walls. There is a quiet thing happening in every space you walk into. A negotiation between an environment and a nervous system. Both of which evolved on different timescales for different purposes. The environment was built last year by a contractor who wanted to finish on schedule. The nervous system was built over hundreds of thousands of years by ancestors who needed to know whether a cave was safe to sleep in. When those two things meet, the older one wins. Every time you walk into a room, your body decides something about it within seconds. The decision is correct. It is based on data your conscious mind doesn't even know it's collecting. Light, height, corner, material, smell, sound, view. All of it processed at once. All of it weighed against an ancient checklist for whether this is a place where you can rest. The sadness you sometimes feel in rooms isn't yours. It's a message from a part of you that remembers what a home is supposed to feel like, and is quietly, patiently, every single day, trying to tell you when you're not in one.